in just a few minutes, we're going to get started with a gentle yoga class. You'll need a strap and a little extra padding for your knees. We'll be on our hands and knees for a fair amount of time. So if you know you're sensitive or you have a really hard floor, maybe a blanket to fold underneath the knees. And if you have a wrist injury or you just don't have a lot of flexion in the wrists, arthritis or any old injuries, have another tea towel or something to fold to put underneath the heel of your hand so that you don't have to have quite so much flexion in the wrist. And we'll get started in just a few moments. I'm just going to start some more insets. Alright, so we're going to get started. If you haven't already, we'll come to a comfortable cross-legged position. As always, if cross-legged doesn't work for you, any other upright position will work. And we'll start by bringing the hands to the knees or the thighs. Closing down the eyes. And taking a few moments to turn inward. Now, as you arrive in your comfortable seat, continue to cultivate a nice tall spine. So imagine your tailbone being heavily weighted and your crown of the head or the head itself is light, meaning that it's going to rise up. So you'll feel the crown of your head get closer to the ceiling or the sky above you. And then continuing to bring your awareness inside, so noticing the thoughts, noticing any feelings, sensations in the physical body or again within your thoughts. And then noticing the quality of your breath. So can you maybe make your breath smoother or slower? For some of you, perhaps a deeper breath would be a nice shift. So if you know that you tend to breathe quite shallow, can you slow the breath down and bring it lower? And you'll feel more movement in the abdomen and less movement in the upper shoulders, upper chest. And we'll just hold that for just a little bit more time, letting you settle in. Now, allow the eyes to open, but maintain your beautiful posture, your tall posture. And start to rotate the wrists in circles. So both directions, alternating back and forth. I'm going to be spending a fair amount of time on the wrists today, so just be really mindful that at any time during the practice your wrists start to ache or to get sore, that you either come onto fists or you take a break, you come out of whatever we're doing, you massage them, take a rest, and then come back in if you can. So after some circles, we'll just very gently take your hand out in front and pull the fingertips back. So we want to be feeling the stretch down to the palm of the hand and the lower part of the forearm. And then releasing the fingertips down, pulling the hands now back towards you, or the fingers back towards you, feeling the stretch, top of the wrist, top of the forearm. And then turning your palm up, use your other hand to just very gently start to stretch your fingers down. So one at a time, getting a nice stretch. And we'll return to the left side, same thing, so the little stop sign, fingers pull back. Fingers point down, and again, pull the hand back. Placing the palm up, stretch each of the fingers. One at a time. You might notice how some are quite resistant, others are a little bit more willing to be bent and manipulated. I actually really love the sensation. I think it feels really good. I hope you do too. And once you've given your fingers a good stretch, again, just a few more wrist circles, and then we're going to meet in tabletop, so on your hands and knees. Spread the fingers wide, and again, this is where if you've got wrist injury, you may want to have a little extra padding underneath the heel of your hand so you don't have quite so much of a 90-degree bend in the wrist. Knees underneath the hips. So from here, we're going to start with our spinal flossing. So this might be slightly different than you're used to. You can have your toes either tucked or untucked. And what we're going to do first is to let the belly come down. Your gaze will naturally want to go forward, and the tip of your tailbone will point up. So this is our cow pose. You're going to maintain this shape as you let your hips glide back towards the heels. You can have a little pause. You can reach your chest a little farther forward. You make your arms strong and straight. And then inhaling, roll back forward. And as you roll forward, start to arch the back up, letting the weight come over your wrist. So you got a really strongly arched upper back. Arms are strong and straight. Your chin is tucked. And your hips have glided forward. And then you'll start to move in between those two postures. So the belly comes down, the hips move back to heels. Inhaling, rolling forward, you arch up strongly in the upper back. So you're going to move back and forth, spinal flossing, and just be aware of any strong sensations in the wrist. If it's too much, then just don't let your weight go quite as far forward. Spend a little more time with your hips back. We'll do a few more. Shoulder circles. So you get to decide how big the range of motion is, but we want to get as much movement through the shoulder joint as possible. Your left arm is strong and straight, and you're keeping your core pretty firm and keeping you level. Now your right elbow could be bent, it might be straight, doesn't matter, but go in both directions. And we'll complete the cycle, come back to tabletop. Same thing, other side. So left shoulder rotating, making your circles. Right arm now still stays straight. And you're keeping your core engaged. Both directions of the left shoulder. Finish the cycle, and we'll meet back tabletop. Let your hips glide back towards your heels. Again, you can have toes tucked or untucked, and just take a break, come off the wrists. You can move them around a little bit. And then we'll come back again into tabletop. Moving into a side bend, hands again a little bit closer towards each other underneath your chest. Right arm will reach forward, thumb will point up, and then you're going to take your right hand across your mat to the left. And you're going to arch your body over so that you can feel a stretch through the right hand side of the waist. Release and come back to table. And we'll go to the other side. Left arm forward, thumb faces up. Drag it across all the way until you feel again the stretch on the left hand sideways. And releasing back to tabletop. One more time, glide your hips back, sit on your heels. Take the weight off your wrists. So if the wrists do start to get tender, now might be a time where you want to come onto fists, because we're going to be moving through the legs and you don't need quite as much stability through the hands. So either back onto palms or back onto fists. Shifting the weight to the left knee, lift up your right knee, and now take your right knee slash hip in circles. So the thing to be mindful about in this one is watching that you're not sort of leaning to one side or the other. Arms stay strong and straight, and you're just getting as much range of motion through the right knee and right hip as possible. And of course we'll go both directions. Now lots of stability through the core here. And increased range of motion, might be some cracking and popping going on in the hip. Make sure you've gone both directions at least a couple of times. And we'll come back to tabletop to switch sides. So same thing, left circles with the knee. Good, and then releasing back to tabletop. And they come off our wrists, but we're going to go down to forearms. So forearms come down to the mat. You can either interlace your fingers, you can have your palms down flat, whatever feels more natural or supportive for your shoulders. Elbows can be just slightly wider than the shoulders. And then choosing again how you're going to place your hands. From here, we're going to move forward and backward. So you're going to let your shift weight go forward. Your face will be over top of your fingertips, and then you'll press back, hips towards the heels. And you're going to continue. So inhaling perhaps to go forward, exhaling to press back. So think of this as we come forward, we're building strength in the core and through the shoulders. And then as we press back, we're getting length. So opening up the mobility through the shoulder joint. Inhaling strength, exhaling length. And you can make subtle shifts to the angle of your arms, how far back you press, how far you go forward, and how long you stay there to create whatever degree of sensation you're looking for today. We're going to do a few more of these. Now, if you wanted to bump this up a notch, you would come into on your balls of the feet instead of on your knees. So you'd be coming in and out of your dolphin plank, walking forward and back. So wherever you're at, we'll bring the knees back down if you've lifted them, and you'll slide back into a child's pose. So big toes together, hips go back towards the heels, arms can stretch out long, and then just turn your palms if you're able to up. And get a nice stretch through the arms, through the wrists. And once you've had your little rest in child's pose, we'll come back up into tabletop. I'll just turn this way so that hopefully you can see a bit better. Let your weight go shifting back towards the heels slightly, and just turn your palms so that they're up. And you can look at the palms of your hands underneath you. And then just very gently let your weight shift back forward. So you've got pressure down through the wrist joint, but you're looking at your palms are facing up. And you can gently rock side to side and forward and back. Just adding a slightly different sensation to the wrists. And then you can flip your hands back to your natural position, palms down. From here, we're going to come up onto fingertips. So we're going to step our left foot forward between the hands. So we're not in our low lunge. We're in more like a 90-90. So 90 degrees on the front knee, close to 90 on the back knee so that the knee is underneath the hip. And then once you've got your stability, we'll come up, hands to forward thigh or forward knee. We want to create a scissoring action with the legs. So front heel pulls back knee pulls forward, like blades of a scissors that's open and you're trying to close the scissors. So lots of leg engagement, you get this upward lift. And then once you've got that, we'll firm up through the belly and we'll reach the arms overhead. Shoulders will come down away from the ears. Your palms are facing each other. Now we're going into a side bend and there's going to be a few different levels, so just take it to where you know you can safely go. One option is to bring right hand to right hip and just lean over towards the right. If you feel like you've got a pretty deep side bend, you feel like you've got the space, your right hand could go either to a block or to the floor so that you can deepen the side bend. Keep the engagement of the legs at scissoring action. Lots of length through the spine and a beautiful side body stretch. Inhale to rise up. Hands back up overhead facing each other. Check in, make sure you haven't lost the firmness in the legs and the belly. And we'll go to the other side. So either left hand to left hip with a slight lean to the right or to the left, or left fingertips down, deepening the side body stretch. Inhale, rise back up, arms overhead. And now bringing the palms to face forward, cactus arms or cowboy arrest arms. And then we'll turn to the right. So you're opening up your chest to the long edge of your mat. Arms are like 2 90-degree angles. Nice and even, legs are still scissoring. Got lots of strength. Firmness through the belly, lengths in the spine. All right, from here we'll come back to center. And then you'll turn to the left. Come back to face forward. Bring your hands now to the low back, like you're going to slide your hands into some jean pockets. Roll the shoulders, pull shoulder blades together, elbows together, and then just start to lift up through your sternum. So a little tiny mini back bend. Gaze can rise up. And then we'll gently release. Hands back down to the mat. And we'll switch legs. So left leg goes back, right foot comes forward. Find again the right placement for your back knee and the front knee so you feel really stable. And we'll meet with hands to forward knee or thigh. Create that scissoring action, firmness through the belly. Arms will reach up, palms face each other. And starting with the side bend to the left this time. So left hand to left hip or left hand to the floor or prop. Leaning to the left. So rising back up, palms overhead, and switching sides. Right hand, right hip, leaning to the right. And rising back up, arms overhead, palms facing. And then palms forward, open the arms into your cactus shape. We're going to be turning to the left first. Try to line up your arms with the long edge of your mat. Back to face forward, and then last rotation to your right. Try to keep the elbows close to 90, palms facing the long edge of the mat. Even breaths. Right, and then coming back to face forward, hands again into the imaginary pockets, supporting your low back as you from the belly, lift up through your sternum and just slightly lean back, gaze goes up. And releasing the hands back down to the floor, we'll step our feet back, tucking the toes, and rising up for downward facing dog, Urdhva Hastasana, coming up soon. Now we'll try to create a little more length in the back of the body. So heels press down, sit bones turn up, arms are long and straight. Even breath. And then begin the walk of feet to hands. Have a brief pause in a forward fold. And then bend the knees, swoop the arms up, Urdhva Hastasana, arms overhead, full body stretch. Releasing the hands down. So moving through a nice slow Sun Salutation with rolling cobras when we come down onto the belly. So I'll guide you through it. Arms all the way up. And exhale, forward fold. Inhale, rise up onto your fingertips or hands to shins if you need a bit more space. And then exhale, plant the hands, step back into plank or plank on your knees, and we'll hold. So just give yourself some time to fine tune the posture, creating strength and stability, the ability to hold. Keep the breath slow and even as best you can. And then we will let the body come down to the belly. So weight goes slightly forward, bend the elbows lower down, untuck the toes, lengthen your legs out behind you. Hands are either under the shoulders or farther back towards the waist. And we'll go through our rolling cobra. So every time you inhale, you peel yourself away from the floor. When you exhale, you roll back down. So using the muscles in the low to mid back, the legs are firmly rooted, and your shoulder blades are squeezing together, elbows close to the side. We'll do a couple more. And we'll meet lower down so that we can tuck the toes. And you're either going to press to plank or plank on the knees, and you'll have a brief pause there. Hold your shape. And then press back, either child's pose or down dog. Starting your journey to the top of the mat, we'll meet in a forward fold. And then softening the knees so that you can take that big arm swoop all the way to the top. And release the hands down in front of the heart. One more time, just like that, arms swoop up. Hands come down, forward fold. Rising up, either fingertips or to shins, extended lift. Bend the knees, walk the feet back to either plank or plank on the knees. hold, create strength and stability, endurance. And we'll lower to the belly. Untuck the toes, this time taking your hands off your mat, little spider fingers, so the palms are lifted, the fingertips are down. Turn your elbows up towards the ceiling. And now start your rolling cobra. So every time you inhale, you rise up. And on the exhale, you roll back down. And we'll meet with the body back down and lowered, bringing the hands back underneath the shoulders. Tuck the toes, and we'll press either plank or plank on the knees. Hold. And then back to downward facing dog. And then we'll walk the feet to meet the hands, top of the mat, forward fold. Bend the knees, rise up. And hands to heart center. And we'll release the hands. And we'll prepare for our balance sequence. So if you need a little extra support, have a chair handy or a wall where you can bring your hand to the wall. And we'll start in Tadasana, so hands to hips, nice tall spine. And we're going to be working on our star pose. So shift all the weight to your left foot and lift your right heel. You want to strengthen the left standing leg so your glute is engaged, your thigh, firmness through the belly. And then we're just going to take our right foot out to the side. So you're balancing on the big toe. And then add the arms out to the side. So this is where you might have a hand coming down onto a tray or to a wall. And then you're going to tip. So you're going to tip over to your left leg, lifting the right, and coming into your star pose. So you can work on how high you want to lift your right leg. Maybe it just sort of grazes off the floor so you have lots of balance. Reaching the arms out long and wide, and then trying to hold. If you want to challenge yourself, you could close your eyes. You could change your gaze around the room. And we'll hold for a few more breaths. And then nice and controlled, coming back to Tadasana. And then shifting your weight to the right leg, hands back to hips to start, left foot out to the side. Firmness through the belly, arms reach out, palms can face forward. And then tipping. Balancing on the right foot, lifting your left leg as high as you can comfortably go, and tipping over to the side. We'll hold here, play with your gaze, work on lifting your left leg perhaps higher. You can experiment with pointing and flexing the foot, and we'll hold. And releasing back to Tadasana. Okay, moving into our standing figure 4 stretch so we can get a nice stretch through the outer hips that we're just working. We're going to start again. The left leg is the balancing foot, hands to hips, and bringing the right ankle to left thigh. So this is where you might want to have your hands on a prop or a wall out in front. Otherwise, keeping your hands on your hips, start to bend your standing leg. And as you bend down lower, you'll feel a deeper sensation in the outer hip for most of us. And then you can decide how low you want to go. So maybe the hands to the leg, or maybe fingertips down to the floor to a prop. And then we'll just hang out here, breathing, making adjustments, working with the balance. Now, coming out of the posture with as much control as hopefully you went in. And releasing the leg. Move around. And we'll go straight to the other side. The left foot coming up. Ooh. Right foot, right leg is the standing leg. And then slowly choosing the depth of your posture. And then we'll work on simply holding the shape. Minor little adjustments of the angle of your hips, the flex of your foot will all change the sensation, so make sure you explore. And then we will again rise up with as much control as we went in. And releasing the foot. We move around a little bit. And then finally coming into our yogi squat. So we want to take the feet wider, toes turn out, heels turn in. And choosing your variation. So option number one, if your knees just don't like this sort of compression, then maybe it's just forearms to thighs, almost like a wall sit. If you know that your knees are okay, coming down a little lower, and your heels may or may not come to the floor, it doesn't matter. If they don't come to the floor, you might just want to put a blanket or something underneath the heels so that you have more support. And then I guess choosing if you need your hands down to the support of the floor, or if you want to bring the hands up. If none of those options work, third option is to sit all the way down onto your bum, legs nice and wide, tall spine. You'll still get the nice sensation through the inner thighs, working on the length of the spine. So choose which one you want to be in, and then we'll hold. We're going to bring one hand out in front or one hand behind so that we can safely lower down onto our bottoms. And you're going to bring your legs out in front. And then just take the time to find your strap. So we're going to start seated with our strap. And you're going to just lean forward and lasso your right foot. And extend your left leg out long and straight. So a little bit of core work and also some fun, so we don't want to ever take ourselves too seriously. So once you've got your right foot lassoed, you're going to start to straighten your right leg out in front. And again, it doesn't matter how straight it goes or how high it lifts. What we're going to try to work on is going from here onto our back safely. So sometimes the left leg has to lift and act like a bit of a counterweight, and you might have to adjust the grip on your strap. But what we're going to do is just start to lean or roll back until we can come into our supine hamstring stretch. And you might want to play with this a little bit. Maybe you can come back up. So if you lift the left leg as an anchor and pull yourself back up. And then you can work here. And then when you get that inspired, you can roll back down onto your back. So we want to go back and forth at least a couple times. Coming back up, you might be able to just push your foot into your strap to rise up, or you might need to lift your other leg. Try both. Have a sense of play and adventure, curiosity, and just see what you're capable of today. Now, wherever you're playing, we're going to meet back upright with a nice lifted straight leg. You might have to adjust the grips on your strap. And then we'll release and we'll switch sides. So again, it's a little bit of unguided play time. So go to where you can. If you know you can't, you don't feel safe rolling back, and of course you just stay upright and you work on stretching and opening up to the back of the hamstring. And then you just start to experiment and play if that's where you're going to go today. We will meet again upright with a nice hamstring stretch using your strap as a support. And then we will release. Strap can just go to the side. Bend your knees and bring your left forearm across the knees. And your right arm is going to open up and come to point towards the back of your mat. You're going to take your gaze to follow your right fingertips. Nice tall spine. Release and switch your arms. Left arm reaches back. Gaze follows the fingertips. And releasing back to face forward. Moving into our Navasana or boat pose, again a sense of play and curiosity. And working with the balance and a little bit of core endurance. So I'm not going to do a whole bunch of reps. We're just going to come into a shape and then we're going to see if we can sustain the shape. Maybe making tiny little micro movements as needed. So hands can either stay on the legs or they can release forward. You can lean back to whatever degree you feel comfortable with. And then choosing if you're going to come to tippy toes, lift the feet, or straighten the legs. And then we'll just hold. But while you're holding, you can make adjustments. You can go up and down, different variations. And just seeing where your strength is today, where your focus is. And of course, when the shaking starts, you know that change is happening, so just be okay with that. Be really mindful that you're keeping your back straight. You're not letting the back round back, so keep the sternum lifted. And then it might be a little more challenging, but that's okay. You can always come out earlier or choose an easier variation with the legs. Last couple breaths. And letting the feet come down, pulling yourself back upright. And then letting your legs go back out in front. Adjusting your sit bones. So I'm going to do two variations for the next one. I want to come into a quad stretch and a hip flexor stretch. But I know that this one isn't always available to everyone, so I'll give two variations, one that's slightly easier than the other. So if this is okay for you to be here, I want you to lean to one side, maybe to the left to start, and just pull your right foot back right alongside your right hip. Of course, this can be quite challenging for some of you with knee injuries, so be mindful. You want your heel really close to your hip, so we don't want it out to the side or the foot to be flexed. We want the top of the right foot down on the mat. And you may have to sit on a block. So a block or a blanket underneath your left side will give you a bit more space so that you don't have to bend your right knee quite so far. Now, if this one's okay for you, you either stay right here and you stay upright, or you add a little bit of a lean back, and then you can always deepen the stretch by pressing down through the bent knee and lifting your hips slightly. So you'll feel a nice release through the hip flexor and the quad. Now, if this one's not available to you, then of course you could do your quad stretch on your side. So coming to lie on your side, I'm bending the top knee and reaching back for the foot. This is be a bit more accessible. You could also use a strap around your foot so you don't have to bend your knee as much. So either of those options. And then if that just doesn't work either, of course you could come into a low lunge with the back knee slightly farther back. Hands are going to support you. So our focus is quad and hip flexor. So wherever you can get that stretch, go there, stay there for a few more breaths, and then we'll switch sides. So if you're in the first variation, you're going to rise up, you're going to unravel your legs, and we'll come into the other side. So left foot coming back alongside the hip. Sometimes just rolling out the meaty, fleshy part of your calf away from you will give you a bit more space. And then of course, you may have to sit on a blanket or a prop on the right side. Upright or a slight lean back. If you know that you can safely go all the way back, then you know that that's available. And then of course, if this one doesn't work, the quad hip flexor stretch line on your side, or the low lunge. And it would be your left leg that is back for the low lunge variation. And so choose your medicine, and then we'll stay here for a little bit longer. So coming out of whichever variation you found yourself in, we'll meet back seated with the legs out in front. And hopefully the strap is somewhere nearby. Once you've got that, you'll roll onto your backs. So we'll start with knees to chest. You can wrap your arms around your knees or your shins, rocking side to side. And then rocking back to center. Grab your strap and bring it around the soles of your 2 feet and begin to straighten the legs up to the ceiling. So I always like to say, get your hands as close to your feet as possible on this strap. Just because it trains your body and your mind so that eventually someday you don't need the strap, maybe you can have your hands on the feet. And it also gives a really nice strong stretch to the arms so that you get used to this straight shape. And you can work on pulling your the backs of your shoulders to the floor. And it feels really stable and strong. So starting with our 2-legged hamstring stretch, your legs might be way out here, that's okay. Wherever they get to, keep your low back firmly rooted and try to get your hands as close to your feet as possible. Now where you place the strap on your feet might make a big difference for you as well. If you want to get a bit more into the calf muscle and the flexion in the front of your foot, or your ankle joint, the strap goes a little bit more onto the ball of your foot and you pull the ball of your foot down so you get that really nice strong sensation through the calf muscle. For others, maybe having the strap in the sole of the foot is better. And for those of you who are a little bit stiffer, you may want the strap on the heel of your foot so you can have the support a little bit farther away from you. So we'll just stay for a couple more breaths here. And then wherever you get, just release the tension on the strap so that your legs are pretty much over top of your hips. And a lighter grip on your strap. So we're going to take our feet wide into a straddle split. And you're just going to let the strap slide through your hands until you get your legs away from each other at a distance that you can maintain. So not too wide, not too narrow. And then reaffirming the strong grip on your strap, start to push your feet out and away from each other so that you're stretching the strap in between your feet. So you're going to feel all the muscles of your legs start to fire up. And then you're gonna work on holding that contraction. So you're trying to break or stretch the strap, pushing your feet away from each other and keeping your low back firmly rooted to the mat. And again, we're just working on endurance. So if you need to take a break, you just soften, you relax. And then when you're ready again, you go back into that pulling or stretching your strap. Okay, and soften, release. Let your knees bend, and you can use your strap to come into happy baby. You might need to adjust the grip on your hands, or if you don't need the strap, you could just take it off to the side. But sometimes it's nice to use the strap as an extra little tool. And we're trying to get our feet so that they face straight up towards the ceiling. They're right over top of the shoulders. And we're getting our knees and our elbows to pull down towards the outside edges of the mat. Low back again stays really firmly rooted to the floor. And then you find where you can hold. Now you can start to soften and release the shape. You can let your strap go off to the side. Pull the knees into the chest, rock a little bit side to side. And release the feet back to the mat. Once the feet are down, lift your hips, adjust the hips, adjust the placement of the shoulder blades underneath you. So I like to lift the chest, tuck the shoulder blades together, and then lower back down. And then we'll bring our feet into supine butterfly. So soles of feet together, knees can open up wide. And feel free to bring extra support underneath the knees, or use your hands to support the legs, or your hands to gently increase the stretch by pressing them down and apart. We'll just hold here for a few moments. Feel free to adjust as many times as you need to before you settle into stillness. Use your hands if you need to let your knees come back together. And then one more time, knees into the chest. This time, no arms wrapping around. Instead, take the arms either to cactus shape or outstretched like airplane wings. Firmness through the belly as you let your knees come down to the right. So we're going into our supine twist. If you need to add props under your knees or in between the knees, please do. And then just adjust the shoulder blades so that they're evenly weighted, and you can take your gaze to the left. We're going to lift the legs to center, make any adjustments, and then lower the knees to the left. Again, readjust the shoulders and take your gaze to the right. preparing to bring the knees back to center, give yourself a few moments to move around in any way that you feel your body needs, and then we'll find our way into Shavasana. So I'm going to recommend a star shape for your Shavasana. So once you feel like you're ready to come there, and feel free to move around a bit more, but you want to take your legs wide, adjust your hips, take up as much space as possible, and then even do the same for your arms. So arms slightly overhead, out to the side, as if you're going to make a snow angel. And then close down your eyes, add a blanket should you get to cool. And then this is our Shavasana. I'd like you to stay here, working on relaxing as deeply as possible. And I'm going to tell a little story just to give you something to focus on while you come into your rest shape. Now, if you prefer to not have talking or distraction during your Shavasana, just let my voice be the background to your own practice, to your own thoughts. And if you have trouble settling, I'll tell you a story so that you have something to focus on. And this is a story of Loba. And Loba is an old woman, and she lives in a hidden place that everyone knows in their souls, but few have ever seen. Loba is almost always fat and hairy, and she doesn't make a lot of human sounds. She tends to cackle and crow, and so she's always alone. She's very much a loner. She doesn't seek out other people's company. However, sometimes if you are lost or alone and tired, you may stumble upon her. So just take that with you as something to remember. When you are really lost and tired and alone, Loba may just come across your path, and you'll recognize her as this old, fat, hairy woman who makes a lot of animal sounds. Now, Loba only has one sole job, one purpose in her later years, and that is to wander the mountains and deserts and riverbeds looking for bones. Bones of animals from the desert and the mountains. She prefers to pick the bones of things that are at risk of dying out, of becoming extinct, or the bones of things that aren't loved or appreciated or respected. So she has all these bones gathered in a cave in the mountain, deer, rabbits, snakes, but her specialty is to collect the bones of wolves. So as she wanders all the mountains and deserts and riverbeds looking for the bones, she collects them, and once she has the bones of a whole skeleton, she will assemble it on the floor of her cave like a puzzle piece. And I like to imagine her having a fire at the entrance to the cave, and she's laid out the puzzle of her bones beside the fire. And she sits for a few moments beside the fire, admiring her work. And then she has to make a decision. And the decision is in regards to what song she will sing over the bones. And this is a really important decision, so it may take some time for her to come to that decision. And once she's made the decision for the song, she will come up onto her feet. I like to imagine her on her feet, and start to circle the fire as she's gazing at her masterpiece, the bones, and she starts to sing. And as she sings, as time goes on, the skeleton starts to flesh out. So muscles and tendons and ligaments begin to grow. And she sings some more, and it goes on for a long time. She's singing her heart out. She's stomping her feet and circling the fire, and perhaps the stars are out and maybe the moon. And then eventually the wolf of the skeleton bones that she's laid out starts to get fur, and then maybe organs, and finally its first breath, and the wolf is resurrected. Now Loba's job is done. She can sit down by her fire and admire the work that she has done. And I like to think of the wolf and her having a moment of looking into each other's eyes with gratitude and respect and love. And the wolf is renewed and is thankful for his resurrection or her resurrection and runs off. And the Loba is fine with that. That was her whole job, was to resurrect, find the bones, resurrect them, breathe life into them, and send it on its way. So at some point as the wolf is running away from the cave, it could be from the speed at which it runs, maybe the magical splash of water onto its fur for the first time as it runs through a creek, or it could just be the way the light of the moon or the sun hits its fur. But at some point, this wolf is transformed again, but this time into a woman. And the woman runs, smiling and laughing, towards the horizon. Now just let a few minutes go by while you ponder the story and the metaphors and the symbolism and the meaning behind the story. And see if it has any effect or meaning to you. So the Loba is within us all, men and women. She is our instinctual nature. The instincts that have survived throughout time. They've always been there. We're always born with them. And under circumstances such as parenting, culture, sometimes we lose touch with the Loba, or our instinctual nature. So she is within all of us. That's why we recognize her. The bones represent the indestructible force of life. So we're all born with our bones scattered in the desert or the mountains. And it is our job throughout our life to go and collect our bones, to assemble them. And that is our life purpose, to find all of our bones and recognize them and then find them. And then to sing over the bones is a soul song. So to sing means to use the soul voice. It means to say on the breath the truth of one's power and one's need. To breathe soul over the thing that is ailing or in need of restoration. This is done by descending into the deepest mood of great love and feeling, till one's desire for relationship with the wildish self overflows. Then to speak one's soul from that frame of mind. That is singing over the bones. This is solitary work. The Loba is always described in stories of a solitary figure because she is our instinctual nature. So our job is to find our bones, to collect them, to assemble them, and then to sing over the bones of our greatest need and resurrect ourselves. To come back to our instinctual nature so that our life is full of joy and purpose. Now you can start to rotate the wrists and ankles. And ease your way so that the arms and legs come back down, and gather the knees into the chest. Wrap your arms around your knees or your shins. Massage your back and your hips as you rock side to side. And then either rolling to your side for a pause in fetal position, or rocking and rolling yourself forward and back until you can arrive back up and seated. And we will close our practice by coming back to where we started. So nice tall spine. Eyes can either be downcast or closed. Hands resting on the knees of the thighs. Go back to bringing yourself inward, noticing the breath, noticing all sensations, whether those are thoughts or physical sensations in the body. And we'll join our hands together in front of the heart, Anjali Mudra, sealing the story and everything that we learned about our mind, our body, and our breath today between the palms. And may you be inspired to gather your bones and to sing your soul song over them so that you may be resurrected, entering into a path of joy and purpose. Thank you for allowing me to guide your practice. Namaste. Have an amazing day. And if you're curious about the story, it's from this book called Women Who Run with the Wolves by Clarissa Estes. I hope I said her name right. And it's full of great stories and lots of good fun. So enjoy. Thanks for coming.